All right, well then I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're right at 2 p.m. Eastern. So thank you for joining us today for our webinar on making accessible videos. I appreciate Marty, Linda, and the AT3 Center for having me. My name is Lissa Prince. I am the Assistant Director over Digital Accessibility with Oklahoma Able Tech. I've been doing this work with Oklahoma Able Tech for about 5 years now, a little bit over that, with some student experience. I guess you could call it closer to a decade, but very passionate about this work. It's a fun technical challenge always, and I'm really happy that I'm able to hopefully teach you all some things today about making accessible videos as a whole. A couple reminders that Marty and Linda wanted me to share with you. To make sure you see the captions, you can click on the CC button in the control panel. So that should be available for you. I would also, I kind of try to keep these pretty informal. So I'll ask you to kind of interact through the chat and things, but if you have any questions, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A in the control panel as well. That just helps me be able to find those questions a little bit easier and not lose them in the chat. And also I encourage you to, talk with your fellow participants in the chat too. Near the end of the session, we're gonna have a post-meeting survey. So would love for you to fill that out. It just helps AT3 and myself just know, what the content came out as and if it's something you were interested in and if we kind of need to keep things moving with that front. So that said, we'll kind of jump into it. And I wanted to first start by just getting you in this idea of how you watch videos in general. So do any of you try to multitask while you're watching videos? Like this woman in the first picture who's actually mopping the floor. So we're imagining her in her living room. She's got the TV on in the background and is likely not necessarily paying full attention to the screen. So is that any of you all? Try to check out the chat for a second now. I've got some reactions coming in. Yeah, I know I do this. And same thing in a loud place. There is a picture on the screen now of, in the second column, of looks like a betting bar or sports bar kind of thing where people are watching a lot of games or things like that. So, I often myself go watch Oklahoma City Thunder games, and I have noticed that a lot of places don't actually allow me to interact with that material because they don't have captions on, which we'll cover a lot here in the long run. And then another thing is another way is in a quiet place. So we have a picture here of a library where people are sitting and reading, but also on computers. Sometimes I'm sure people are actually on their phones, maybe at work and watching, and don't necessarily have access to the audio for that video, right? So there are lots of ways people interact with videos. And oh, and I'm sorry, now I'm going back to the comment. I love Laura's comment. Yes, when else do you clean your house, right? I think a lot of us have background noise going always at this point. So some of you, even if you don't have any visual impairments or hearing impairments, are likely experiencing videos in a non-normal way, which means you're not necessarily watching the video and hearing the audio at the same time as you're watching the actions take place on the screen. So these are experiences we have regularly. They can really help us understand how someone else may need to actually interact with this video who does have different types of impairments. All right. And also, I made there's actually a commercial that I was the doing chores one. I was just doing this the other day, so I'd actually share this, and I kind of forgot to write down my notes because it just popped up to me this morning. But it was actually a commercial for like a garage door place, and they have absolutely no sound. So I was actually doing something in the other room, and I thought my TV had just turned off. And I go in there, and sure enough, there was a video on, but I had no sound, and I had no idea. So that was a really good example, and I was like, hey, I should use that. Anyway, here we go. So what we're trying to do here today is make sure we cater to all the senses and the needs that we can. So I have vision represented, hearing represented, and also the brain for any cognitive kind of disabilities that we can help out with some of these things we'll talk about as we get going. Also wanted to kind of let you know how this is going to go today. We're basically going to work on building a checklist. This is very much geared towards non-expert video creators, which I consider myself one of. In fact, you'll get to see this lovely little quick video I made of myself, which is very strange and awkward, but hey, I feel like this is something you guys all do too. So I was hoping to kind of get down and show you something that probably looks like what you're doing with some of your videos. We're going to discuss audio description and captioning in great detail. So there is a checklist we're going to follow, but we're going to kind of hit those two things pretty hard. I will do a lot of demonstrations. So hopefully this will start to demystify some of the issues you may have had with captioning and audio description, if those things are sounding familiar to you as it is. And then of course we'll have Q&A at the end, but like I mentioned, add those questions whenever they come to you. So our checklist is really to start, we want to plan and script anything that we do. That is going to help us in so many ways, and I'll kind of cover those as we get going. We're going to also make sure to shoot the video, so that one seems obvious, right? And there are a couple of things we can kind of consider as we're shooting the video that can help us make a more accessible experience overall. Then, of course, we finish up kind of by creating our captions in a transcript. And then lastly, we publish. So there are little accessibility elements in all of these. Number 1 and number 3 are going to be the ones where we spend the majority of the time today. All right, we'll start with planning and scripting. So for when you go to plan your video, you're basically trying to figure out what sort of content you're going to have. Who's my audience? What's the goal of this video? So that's really obviously the number one thing. And I'm not going to talk about that too terribly much because we're gearing this more towards the accessibility of the video. And again, I'm a non-expert video creator, but that's a really important thing. So, don't necessarily start creating videos with, no direction in mind. It's better for everyone really if you make sure you have a plan when you're going into this video. You also want to kind of go ahead and find and reserve a quiet space. I think a lot of people do videos that maybe have a lot of background noise or not necessarily a great microphone. And that can actually really impact how your video comes off to everyone, especially people with hearing impairments or who just have some cognitive disabilities. So then you're going to lastly determine the content that you'll share. That can include things like who your speakers are, if you're going to have speakers speak, or if it's another type of video altogether. You're going to see or determine if you're going to have text on screen to maybe introduce the video itself or introduce speakers or something else along those lines. You're going to decide if you're going to have demonstrations. So I know a lot of you may be attending this webinar today in hopes that you can help, or it helps you plan your One Big Thing video for your end of year 23 wrap up for the AT3 Center and ATAP. And there may be some demonstrations that you have in those. So that can be demonstrating anything from an actual assistive technology device to showing what a graph looks like as you're kind of going through it to demonstrate some data or something like that. And this also, by the way, some of the things I'm not talking necessarily about accessible presentations, but some of the things I'll cover actually do apply to that as well. And one thing is demonstrating or describing what you're demonstrating or describing what's on screen. And then you also make sure and kind of plan out your sounds and music. So some videos don't even have sound, like I mentioned. And in that case, we have to handle those a few different ways. But that's kind of the stuff that you're thinking about as you plan your video content. The biggest thing, though, is to make sure you're thinking about the other's experiences. So one of the biggest things to avoid, and I can just kind of cover this one pretty quickly, but avoid any strobing or flashing content. This can cause seizures. So I always think of, when I think of strobing or flashing content, back to like the 90s era with web content where there were just things kind of flashing at you all the time. It was like attention grabbing. Well, like people pretty quickly figured out that's not the best thing to do, which is great because we don't see that very often, but it's still something we need to point out as we're thinking about any kind of digital content. And then you want to think about the visual content you may have. So whether that's speaker speaking or that text on the screen or a demonstration, we're going to try to think through that, figure out if we're going to have those or not. And then if we do have that kind of content, who is it going to be unavailable for? So this is the first area or second area, I guess, where I'm going to ask you to kind of pop in the chat. Hopefully this is a pretty easy answer, but who is visual content unavailable for? People with visual impairments. Okay, you guys got it, nailed it. I've got one low bandwidth users. Oh boy, that's a great answer. Yes, that is absolutely a possibility. Sometimes people who don't have great internet access can run into issues when they're playing a video because it's just they don't have the bandwidth to actually display the video. So they may just be hearing the content, or they may need to actually all access it in a different way, which we'll kind of cover later. Or you guys caught on to what I was doing at the beginning, people busy doing something else. So absolutely, those are all examples where somebody may not be able to access that visual content. And sound content, same question, who is sound content unavailable for? Hard of hearing, loud places, yep. Exactly. All right, perfect. All right, so you guys have nailed it. You already know what disability groups you're serving, which I assumed you guys would, but anyway, you're also catching that there are those other types of experiences as well, which is awesome. One other thing I can point out too very quickly is that we need to make sure any text on the video or just anything that you may be doing has a high level of contrast. Text is the main place where this shows up. So what I have on the screen right now is actually an intro video or an intro from a video we're going to watch here in a bit. It says show me your art with Kelly Ray. It's got kind of stylized red and white font. And I have the color contrast analyzer tool over on the right hand side, just displaying that this actually does have high enough contrast. Does anyone remember the ratio for color contrast that we're looking for? So it needs to be above what number or higher? 4.5 to 1, perfect. All right, so you may be thinking, or we're thinking before, hey, color contrast doesn't necessarily apply to video content, but it still actually very much applies, and it's very much something to just make sure you're checking for as you're kind of planning your content and designing those things. And I have a question, what are you using to create the content that has the contrast checker? Are you talking about the screenshots or just the contrast checker itself? I want to make sure I answer that properly. Or I'll just answer both. So I took screenshots. Okay, I took screenshots of the tool, and the intro video actually was something called Snagit. You can also use a tool on your Windows or Mac machine. They have different versions, and that's absolutely something, if that's really what you're interested in, I can answer that later and provide those tools for you. But Snagit was the one I was using at that time. Okay, awesome. Then good question. But yes, 4.5 to 1 is actually the ratio we're looking for. So this contrast ratio is 4.8 to 1 for that red on the black. The black and the white would have been higher because that's actually the highest ratio that we can actually get. Great questions. Snagit contains both tools. Nope, Snagit is a tool that actually took a screenshot. So I took a screenshot of a YouTube video and the color contrast analyzer. And I'll also, I know we'll be sharing these slides out too, and I forgot to mention that earlier. But I have a bunch of links and things in as you're kind of going through my presentation, both in the presentation itself and in the notes. So the tool that I just mentioned, color contrast analyzer, the link for that will be in there. And if I have time, I can actually pop some of those links into the chat as well. Good questions. All right, so those are a couple of quick things we can talk about, but that last one that I mentioned, or one of the last ones I mentioned, the visual content, I really want to dive into that with talking about describing your visual content via audio description. So we're still building our checklist, but we're going to kind of deep dive into something real quick before we come back and kind of keep building out our checklist. So we're going to start out by watching 2 different videos. So, you know, when I was planning this presentation, I was like, what are the best ways to actually get us to you know, think through these things? And I think this is really honestly the best way. So I'm going to take a little time to watch some videos. So just bear with me and let me know if they are not working on your end. They should be the sound should be shared and everything, but I'll watch the chat and just make sure everything's working okay. So the first one is actually, this is a great group that provides videos and materials on accessibility of all types of information, the W3C. This is their perspective series, and it's the text to speech one. So we're first going to watch a video that does not have any audio description, and then we'll watch one with.
Web accessibility perspectives, text to speech.
Some people can see the text on the screen. Fortunately, computers can convert text to speech.
It's technology that many people who are blind have been relying on for years. But it's also important for many people with dyslexia, and very useful for people with difficulty reading text, as well as some people who just like to multitask. But for this to work, websites and apps have to be properly coded, which has the added benefit of helping search engines index websites' contents better. Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all. Visit w3.org/WAI/perspectives for more information on text to speech.
All right, so that was the first video. And I want you to kind of think through the video and think through those visual pieces of content. So can some of you kind of point out some of the things that you saw that were visually described, but not described with audio? Let's take like 2 or 3 examples and then we'll move on. I'm also just testing you to see if you're paying attention to the videos. Okay, got one suggestion that there was a service dog in there. Guy doing the dishes while listening to a long report, text or text to speech, individual washing dishes. Yeah. Were there pieces of technology in there that were described or shown visually but weren't described, potentially? Laptop, phone, things like that. Absolutely. So those interactions were really what this video was trying to highlight. Kindle or iPad, yes, those things. So the video was really intended to kind of show those interactions of those folks with disabilities with a text to speech device. So that was the various types of devices and various different types of usage. But that's really important thing. So if we're thinking back to our planning piece, the goal of this video was to introduce those interactions. And unfortunately, since most of those were actually shown visually and not in any audio format, someone who's blind is probably not going to be able to understand exactly what those experiences are, right? So let's see what changes and how those interactions are described in the second video.
Web accessibility perspectives, text to speech.
A man is using a laptop with the text on the screen being highlighted as it is spoken.
Some people can see the text on the screen. Fortunately, computers can convert text to speech.
It's technology that many people who are blind have been relying on for years.
A service dog is next to the man. He may be blind.
But it's also important for many people with dyslexia.
A woman is reading on a tablet and listening with headphones.
And very useful for people with difficulty reading text.
A man removes his glasses and listens to a news article on a tablet.
As well as some people who just like to multitask.
A man listens to a magazine article as they do the washing.
But for this to work, websites and apps have to be properly coded.
A website is not properly working for the woman with headphones. She is frustrated.
Which has the added benefit of helping search engines index websites' contents better.
The man with the service dog is using his mobile device outside with bone conduction headphones. Different people from earlier are shown using text to speech.
Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all. Visit w3.org/WAI/perspectives for more information on text to speech.
W3C Web Accessibility Initiative.
Go ahead and pause it there. So all of those things that we're seeing visually are now described, and this is using audio description kind of as a separate voice and a separate track than the main voice and the rest of the video. So this is one type of audio description. We're going to cover another here in a second. But this, and this is actually illustrating a really common way for folks to actually share videos with audio description. So they'll create one without audio description and then another with. So there are two versions for people to access, which is an absolutely fine way of doing it. And I kind of want to pause for a second too. Technically, what you're hearing in that second video are two tracks. So there's one audio track that actually includes the regular narrator, and then the one for the audio description narrator. So those have actually been combined into one video using video editing software. There is a third way of adding audio description, and that's not one I really like to talk about as much because a lot of video players don't actually allow adding a third or second track for audio description. So it's not something that a lot of them actually let you toggle on and off. So that's why you might see in the wild more versions like this, where there are two different versions of the video, one with and one without audio description. So this is a really common way, and it's often done for videos that have already been created and you need to add to it. And you notice there's likely a lot of space to put that audio description in there because they were showing a lot of visual things. But this is just one perspective. And I actually think that there's a better way, which we'll kind of cover, but I see some people talking on chat, so let me go check that out. Got one question. You would need to make sure your audio matches your location. Do the washing doesn't make as much sense in America for descriptive text. Yes, absolutely. That's going to be based on your audience, and just like your video itself, the audio description track needs to match kind of the colloquialisms and things like that for your location. Got someone saying some of it is subjective description. Man listening to a magazine article. Should you infer more than what you actually see? So those are great questions, and that is something that I wish I had time to kind of sit here and debate, but unfortunately, really don't. This is actually kind of one of those things. There are several things like this in accessibility. It's more of an art than a science. So there are going to be a lot of disagreements on this, just like there are maybe disagreements with how you describe an image with alternative text. So that's a great question. Oh, yeah. It's like you're reading my mind, Lorianne. That's awesome. So she mentioned that it's similar to what you put in for alt text. So that's great. So yeah, this is one way of handling it. And I particularly liked in this example, the woman who was the frustration. So that's something that, you know, I would have had no idea about if I hadn't been able to see the content. And it's really important to know in that case that she was actually experiencing something inaccessible and there was frustration written on her face. I know that kind of gets into the subjective piece. Like I said, that's where I would love to have discussions about just particular cases with you all, because everyone has a different perspective on kind of what should and shouldn't go in audio description. And I've got a couple of tips, but again, it's going to kind of depend on your audience, your context, your location, so many other things. But those are great commentary. I appreciate it. All right, now if I can get my PowerPoint.
Web accessibility.
There we go. Now I want to talk a little bit about this third option, which if I were ranking them, this is number one. This is the one that I'm actually suggesting that all of you utilize if you're actually creating your own videos and you have control of this. There are some exceptions, obviously. Just like as with everything, I feel like I wish this were a lot more simplified than it is, but you know, we'll cover those here in a second. I like to get them ahead of myself. So now we're going to actually watch two different videos again. One with audio description in that separate track like we saw before, and then one which uses something called integrated describe video. And hopefully you'll be able to tell the differences as we go through.
Meeting Paul Stewart.
That one started.
Kelly Ray, Twitter @KellyArt.
Hi, and welcome to Show Me Your Art. Today, I am getting pottery trained. Let's go.
Twitter #ShowMeYourArt. She enters.
Wow, what a cute studio.
Finished pottery sits on shelves near the workspace.
This must be the artwork of the potter I'm meeting, Paul Stewart. Paul?
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Hey, hi. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
I got an apron for you here,
Got it.
and then we'll just have a seat at the wheel. So, I'm going to show you what you're going to do.
He slaps a ball of clay on the wheel.
We've pushed this on there, it's stuck on. Now I'm going to try and center it to stop it from wobbling, okay? So nice fast wheel speed, and I'm going to cup my hands and put them on top here.
He squeezes the clay into a cone and pushes it down.
Once you've got this done properly, you'll feel this moment of stillness in your hands. And then it's not wobbling anymore. Now what you're going to need to do is you're going to take your finger,
Okay.
and you're going to start pressing with that fingertip.
He pokes the center of the clay.
Now it's time to pull this open, so here we go.
With his finger, he widens the hole in the middle.
There we go. That's far enough.
Okay.
And then I'm pinching with
All right, so this is a rather 2.5-minute video, so I'm going to stop it about halfway through, and then we can kind of go and compare. And I'll just start this next one, and then we will kind of talk about what you see as a difference between the two videos.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ray with Show Me Your Art. Twitter @KellyArt, hashtag Show Me Your Art. Today, I am getting pottery trained. Let's go. Wow, what a cute studio. It looks like a mix between a bit of a showroom and an actual studio where the pottery happens. This must be the artwork of the potter I'm meeting, Paul Stewart. Paul?
hello.
Oh, hey.
Hey, hi. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And then once you get your apron here, we're gonna get you over at the wheel. Here we go. I'm gonna show you first how to make a pot. And I'm gonna take my piece of clay in my hand here. I'm gonna bang that on that wheel really well.
Okay.
So let's get the wheel turned on there. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull with my right hand and push with my left hand. And I'm crushing the clay. And it comes right up to the middle of my hands. You can see how it's formed a cone there.
Yes.
Then I tip it over and I'm pushing it down into the bottom of my right hand.
Okay.
And the clay now is going to stop wobbling. Then you're going to take your index finger and you're gonna lay it flat across the top. And you're going to start pressing with that fingertip. And your finger is going to flow down into the middle of the clay.
Very cool.
And then you start pulling hard with that fingertip. So you see the clay is coming out now. It's getting
looking
wider.
Really cool. It's actually kind of looking like a donut.
And it's time to start thinning the walls out. So here we go. I've got my thumb on the outside, and with the index finger on the inside. So I'm going to start lifting my hand up. And that's going to thin it out, and it's going to draw those up into a wall.
It's really starting to take shape of almost like a mug without a...
Okay, I'll pause it there now too. All right, so let's talk specifically about what the potter was doing, because I think he did some really different things than he did in the first video. So what were some of the things that the potter did differently in the second video with the integrated description versus the first with the audio description separate? Okay. So Laura's saying provided instructions which serve to describe, absolutely. So he was very much saying, I'm doing this and describing exactly what it was he was doing rather than just saying, you know, this or that, being vague. More detailed description of what he was doing. Let's see, there was one other. I like the comment from Lorianne, integrated was less jarring and better for all audiences. So sounds like you liked what you saw there, which is great. So it's teaching as an extra bonus. Awesome. Yeah. So, and actually you say extra bonus and I'm going to kind of nitpick that a little bit, especially because I know you, Laura. And that's a great comment still, but it's not necessarily providing anything extra. It's actually providing the same thing, right? So he's actually demonstrating that. So someone who can see it is getting that same, that teaching benefit. And if he's describing exactly what he's doing, it's kind of probably then maybe improving the experience for both groups a little bit, those who can see and those who can't, but still it's actually kind of bringing the folks who can't see up to the same level. So it's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Now I see what you're saying. Perfect. Okay. You got one more. He's been being very clear on what's happening, how the shape is changing, where he's putting his fingers. Yeah. Awesome. So this was actually, I don't know if they're the ones who created it. Actually, it's a Canadian company, Accessible Media. But they have started doing this with all of their content. So any shows they produce actually have, if at all possible, this integrated described video. And so this is happening at that planning level. They're actually intending for any show that they have to be described as it's being spoken by the people in the video, rather than having that separate track. So this is actually, I think, a lot easier to do for any of those of us who are, especially those non-experts, because we have more control over the planning and the scripting, which we'll talk about here in a second. So those are, they're a great resource too. And I think in the next slide,
With those two fingers and up we
when you have videos it makes it a little bit complicated, but anyway, I'll get to the resources here in a second because I thought that was the next slide, but it's not. I wanted to talk a little bit about description versus that integrated description. So comparing the two, description is really best for videos that cannot be easily described using integrated description. So I was thinking of soap operas when I said this. They are very dramatic. There are long pauses, glaring stares, that kind of thing. So that would not necessarily be as good of a candidate for integrated description as, say, what was demonstrated by that Potter. There are sometimes more effort and resources required for audio description than integrated description, just because normally you're having to create a separate video or you're having to create a separate track and then find a video player that can actually put those together. Often that requires more money if you're ever outsourcing this. We'll talk a little bit about outsourcing here in a second, but that would actually increase the cost too if you're requiring someone to make 2 videos for you rather than just 1. So there are sometimes when description, that separate audio description is the only thing that works, and that's totally fine. But if at all possible, we're going to look towards doing integrated description. So it does not work well for more of those artistic videos. A lot of movies, dramas in particular, those soap operas, those are the kind of things that maybe integrated description won't work for. They're more working in the planning the script potentially, but like I said, I think they're easier for us non-expert video creators. And I love the comment from Lori Ann, Canada has stricter accessibility standards and enforces them more. Absolutely they do. So they're a little bit ahead of the game than the US, which is awesome for them. And I hope that we can eventually get to be where Canada is right now. All right, I do have a few more tips for integrated description, since that's kind of the direction I'm hoping that you all will go. In all the videos that we watched, there were actually a lot of sounds, right? So I can think of when the woman walked into the pottery store, there was actually the sound of the doorbell, or well, it wasn't really a doorbell, but an actual bell. And she actually, in the first version, didn't say anything, didn't, announce herself. In the second one, she did. And she was actually giving context to that sound, just like in the first example of the video, the person doing the audio description overlay was doing as well. Then we've got the component of showing and telling. So I think the Potter did a really good job of that. If you're having to say this or that or vague language or using other vague language a lot, you probably need to add more context. So instead of saying, you do this with the clay, you put your fingers here and there. I'm saying I just did it, just funny. You put your fingers in the center of the clay and then pull out. That's exactly what he was doing there. He was kind of explaining that vague language that he may have used in the first video. There's also this fine line with over describing or describing enough. And I know that's kind of hitting that art versus science commentary, but you don't necessarily want to describe, like in the case when she walked into the room and saw the pottery, you won't necessarily needing to describe how much pottery there was, like what colors there were. That wasn't necessarily the important thing. But of course, you as the person creating this video, the content owner, you're going to know what's the most important thing you're trying to convey, and hopefully, hone in on that and not necessarily include stuff that is just going to be extra. Another thing, and I think someone already pointed this out, don't interpret, censor, or provide commentary if at all possible. So I know the frustration comment that I mentioned earlier, where the woman was experiencing something inaccessible on her tablet. There was a look on our face of frustration. There's a little interpretation that goes up on there. So I think that was a safe bet to put that in that video as audio description, but some people may disagree with me, right? So this one is also one of those fine line ones. It's kind of tough to hit the mark of interpretation versus just actually describing objectively, what is going on in that video. So those are a few quick tips. And then here is my resources slide. If you want to, and I know a lot of you take what you learn here and are sharing it with your own states and other folks too. I think the video that I have first there, MSFT Enable, which is from Microsoft, that is one of the best videos I've seen on integrated description. It gives a couple of really quick examples and can kind of describe some of those points I just made a second ago. So I took a lot of influence from them actually when I was putting this part together. If you would like to see the, and like I said, you'll have the links to, you'll have this presentation, the slide deck. So these are linked in the presentation. So yes, you'll have access to all of these when we get done. And like I said, I'll try to put some links in if I have time to at the end. I'm just not sure that I will. The AMI Integrated Describe video webpage, it has a bunch of other examples in addition to those pottery ones I showed you. So if you want some more inspiration and instruction, I would recommend going to that page in particular. It's really, really good. The W3 description of visual information is also a really factual kind of roadmap through describing video information. So I like that one as well. All right, so if you determine that you can't necessarily do integrated description and you're not really able to find out how to kind of create that separate audio description and track, and you need to outsource, or you just have a budget and you're able to actually do this, you're deciding, hey, I just don't have the bandwidth to do any of this. There are options for you. So just like captioning, which I'm sure a lot more people are familiar with, there are services that do that. And a lot of the caption folks do outsource or audio description services as well. 3Play Media is one, Media Access Group, and Vitac. So these are just three that I listed that we have kind of had personal experience or know people who have personal experience with, but those are just three options for you to use. And the prices are of course going to range depending upon the length of video and all sorts of things there. All right, so to kind of close out, who does audio description help? We've already talked about this quite a bit, but people who are blind or have low vision, people who can't watch a screen for long periods of time, that's a, kind of a fatigue issue. And then also people who are multitasking. So creating audio description, whether you decide to do it integrated or just as a separate video, it's going to influence and impact a lot of people potentially. All right, so now we're going to kind of get off of our detour and come back to our checklist. And the next thing is to write a script. So after you've kind of done your planning, the next step is to actually write down what you're planning to say in the video or have people say. It really makes for a much more polished video and ensures you're thinking about all of those experiences ahead of time. It also helps with the creation of captions. So if you have a script, all of the tools that I'll show you here in a second will actually take your script and then very quickly and easily help you create some captions. So I have a sample here. This is the video that I mentioned. I'll show you here in a bit, but it's actually just introducing myself. Hi, my name is Lissa Prince. I'm the Assistant Director of Digital Accessibility, and talks about a video I'm creating to test some caption tools. My goodness. All right, so back to our checklist, kind of going back out to, this is number 2. We're going to shoot the video. So I just have a few tips here. Have speakers announce themselves. So this should have already been in your planning in your script, but it is pretty important to have them do that. Everyone speaks slowly. I know, probably a hypocrite. I speak pretty quickly and I try to slow it down, but this is a really important one too. Making sure that people speak slowly and also leave space, which is that fourth bullet I have. It leaves time for people to process and to think, and also to add those audio descriptions if necessary, if you're going that route of non-integrated description. And then I already kind of mentioned this one too, but ensure high quality audio. So I know a lot of folks, we just are using our laptops or our phones to shoot, and that's fine. Especially iPhones and other phones these days, they have pretty high quality audio, but I would really recommend getting a pretty inexpensive microphone. That can really go a long way to improving your audio quality and can also help people with cognitive disabilities as well as those hearing disabilities. So those are just a few things. So number 3 on our checklist is creating those captions and transcripts. And before we get into that, I actually wanted to see if any of you knew about the statistic I had heard this and actually finally looked it up for this presentation, but 80% of consumers are more likely to watch an entire video when captions are available. So I have a kid here on the screen just kind of demonstrating his surprise like I was. And this actually was a joint survey from Verizon and Publicis Media. They did this, and I think they were probably even surprised at the number of people this impacts. And additionally, they found that 92% of people view videos with sound off on their phones. So if we're not adding captions and transcripts, we're potentially not reaching a ton of people, not just folks with disabilities. So it's kind of wild. Right, and I've got someone saying, I know I like to watch TikTok videos without sound and love the captions to not disturb others. That's a great example. I think social media is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people are watching videos without sound. So thank you for that perspective there. All right. So what are captions? Captions are timed text that appear on the video as words are being spoken, or they're also used to announce, like if there's a video that just has music, and doesn't actually have words, it'll be used to announce that there's just music and then there's no audio, no spoken word. There are two types. We have open and closed. So open, and I think these are backwards. I don't know why they were named this way. So if that helps you remember it, great. It helps me remember that I think they're backwards. But open captions are actually the ones that are burned into the video. So they are not able to be detached from the video or turned on and off. Closed captions, which is I feel like what most people are familiar with, at least the term, they can be turned on and off. So like on the Zoom or on YouTube, you can actually click the button and turn off and on closed captions, same on your TV. So those are two types. And Jamie, I don't know if it's Jamis or Jamie, so I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, or something I didn't even say. But the open captions are typically used on those social media videos. Not a lot of social media platforms actually allow you to have the closed caption on and off functionality. So a lot of the videos that you're seeing on YouTube, those are those burned in or open captions. So who do captions impact? So we've already covered the deaf and hard of hearing, a little bit, the people who learn more easily listening to and reading content at the same time. They found that for people with ADHD and autism and several other cognitive disabilities. So it's really impactful to have someone actually reading the same content they're listening to. People watching videos in a loud or quiet environment. So we cover those examples too. And like you mentioned there, watching videos on your phone. So there are tons and tons of reasons for us to create captions. So you have the ability to create captions often in your video editing software. So some examples that I know I personally used or my team has used: Camtasia, Capwing, and Microsoft's Clipchamp. Have any of you heard of Clipchamp before? That's actually one of the demos I'm about to do. But I'm just curious if any of you know about it and have used it. Good stuff. So I hope that's about Clipchamp because it is good stuff. It's really cool. Got one no, so about half and half right now. So we'll cover a sample of that. And like I said, it's really easy to use and it's actually free. Capwing is also free to a certain extent. I think it might change the game with how you think about creating captions. Some other tools you can use for creating captions, we're going to cover YouTube and actually go in and kind of do a demo there. Cadet and Amara. So I know if you go and look through some of the other resources that I'll share throughout this, there are tons of tools out there, but I recommended the ones that I've used or seen people use primarily. All right, so we'll take another detour here off of our checklist roadmap, and we're going to go look at Microsoft Clipchamp and also YouTube for creating those captions. We're actually going to start with YouTube. Okay. Hopefully I can get switched over to YouTube. Okay, so what I've done is actually gone into YouTube ahead of time, and I put in a video of myself, just like I said, a really short, goofy video with that script that I showed you earlier. And this is to the point where I'm just kind of adding some details about the video. Just wanted to let you see it kind of from here. So I would change the title of this to, well, actually, I'll just leave it. There's no reason for me to change it. This is where you choose your thumbnail, you add the playlist, or add it to a playlist, select whether it's made for kids, then you can go on to the next bit. And this is where you actually get to add your subtitles. So in this case, I'm just going to click add subtitles. And the options that you have are upload file, auto sync, or type manually. So we're going to actually choose, in this case, the auto sync. And I'm going to just take the text I have. I think I accidentally closed it out. There we go. So I actually just brought up a notepad that I had my script in. I'm going to copy that text over, and then I will click done. All right, so there are a couple ways to kind of get into this and get out of it, but I want to make sure that those are actually accurate. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to check out the timing, and I'm going to check out the actual words. So in this case, I know the words were what I spoke, and just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to not go through the video now. I'll do it when I get into Clipchamp. But this is basically the start of your caption file. So whether you're hosting in YouTube or not, your captions will be done, and then you can actually export the file later if you'd like to. So I'm going to finish this out. Click private, so I don't want anyone else seeing this but y'all. And then you're able to go in or download the file from here. So downloading the file will create it's an SRT file, and that's something you can take into other platforms and just attach to your video so that, again, it can be turned on and off. So that's a really quick demo. And I know someone was asking for the links. The link for those exact instructions are actually in the slide after this slide that we're on right now. All right, so now we'll move over into Clipchamp. And this video, it doesn't work the same way. So before, we actually took our transcript and popped it in. So again, in just the spirit of showing you different ways of doing things, I'm going to show you how Clipchamp does it, and it's by auto generation. So I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to go into the right-hand side after I've added my video here, click turn on auto captions, click transcribe media, and it's going to generate my captions for me. So YouTube does this as well. And it's not always the best, and I'm actually going to kind of show you some examples of how this doesn't do the best at, figuring out what I'm saying here. But it gets really close, and the timing is there, so it's kind of done a lot of the work for us. So since this is such a short video, this worked great for me. I can come in and correct spellings, add punctuation if I want, remove punctuation if I want, and so on. So, yeah, I think it got everything else correct. So now, let me go ahead and play the video.
Hi, my name is Lissa Prince, and I'm the Assistant Director over Digital Accessibility for Oklahoma Able Tech. This is a video I'm creating to test some captioning tools, so let's get to testing.
So forgiving my goofiness here. That is a great way to get your captions on. So now we can either export the video with those captions turned on, and it will automatically be burned in captions. We can also take the file from the captions, take the file, the SRT file, and then we would be able to take this and upload it into YouTube and just add an SRT file directly there, or Vimeo, or wherever else you're having to share videos. So we would just do that by downloading. So very simple, but those are really great tools that can help, majorly help you get your captions done faster. So, and like I said, with YouTube, you can do the same process where it auto generates your captions if you don't start with a file, a script, and then it'll kind of get you to the same place as where this did, and you just might need to edit the spelling and things like that. So, and I'm gonna go over to the comments. You have to check the captions because the auto ones often have embarrassing wrong issues. Yes, absolutely. So big point here, don't rely on those auto captions. Like, they may get close, but even a few misspellings can really impact the ability for someone to understand these captions that need those. So it's very important to go check those and make sure that they're actually accurate. And also when you're looking for captioning companies, you're really looking for like a 99% success or accuracy rate or higher. They've even shown that 98% is not always enough because it can really destroy the meaning. All right. So talking about captions, how can I copy our transcript now? So if you're talking about with this tool, I can actually take this, download it out, and then open it, and then we could kind of edit it from there and remove some of the timestamps and everything to create a transcript. So I'll get back to my slides and we'll kind of continue covering those. So you're keeping me on track there. Okay. So there are those instructions that I promised. So again, if you download the slideshow, you'll have access to exactly what I just did. And we'll kind of hit transcripts. Oh, and you're talking about Zoom. So that's actually, you should see an option for more in your control bar, and you can actually then, I think, go from that side. If someone else knows for sure, go ahead and add that to the chat because I'm blanking right now on how to do that, but you should be able to download that from Zoom. Okay. So it is best to have both a caption or both captions and a transcript. You start with a script, you're likely already close to done with your transcript, if not completely done. You're going to want to make sure include your speaker names, logical sentences, logical breaks in the content, and your description of visual content. So I think a lot of people forget that last part and don't actually include that visual side as well. But if you're doing the integrated description, your transcript is automatically going to have that visual audio description. I think I said that in a weird way, but anyway, hopefully you get the point. One thing not to include is timestamps. So I know a lot of people actually take the caption file and just copy it out and then kind of use it as a transcript. But that's not necessarily the best way of doing things. I know there's some automated tools, but it's best really if you can take out those timestamps, especially if you're just going to kind of have your transcript listed out or linked. That brings me to my close to my last point on transcripts, where to put them. You can link to your transcripts. So a lot of people just have them on a separate web page and basic, HTML, and they'll link to the transcript from wherever their video is housed. Or you can also place it below the video. If say this is on your website, your video is on your website and you have control over the page, you can just pop your transcript down underneath it. So there are a couple different options for that. So who do transcripts impact? This is going to impact heavily people who are deaf blind. So a lot of the times people who are deaf blind can't actually interact with the caption file or anything in the video. So this transcript may be all that they have to actually understand your content or interact with your content. And then I know someone mentioned this earlier, but people with low internet bandwidth. So say they can't even get to this video, that transcript is going to be how they can get to your content. So very important to include this as well. You do have the option to outsource this, and I included some companies for captioning and transcriptioning, in particular Rev.com, 3Play Media, and Cielo24. But again, a lot of the time these companies do both captions, transcription, and audio description, so they can kind of do it all for you. So if you find a company you like, hopefully it does all three, and you'll be set. All right, so last point on our checklist, which is another quick one to cover, is publishing. So we want to make sure when we publish that we do so accessibly, right? Because hey, why put all this work into your accessible video if you're not actually going to publish it in an accessible format? So this is just making sure your media player is accessible. So video should not start automatically. A lot of the time that's a setting and you can just turn it off. But video starting automatically is really detrimental for all types of folks who are blind and using a screen reader, folks who have cognitive disabilities, just runs the gamut. Player control should be accessible via the keyboard. So this is there's a test you can do called a tab test. And I highly recommend if you have a video player on your own website or you're using something else, kind of just hit your tab key and then try to get to each of the, play button, pause button, change the time buttons, all of those things. You can hit enter or often space once you get to those things to make sure you can interact with them. And if you find anything that you can't use a keyboard with, then that normally means that someone who's using either a keyboard only to navigate, they're not using a mouse, or someone who's using a screen reader cannot get to your video content. And then lastly, just like with any content that we talked about with text, players should have good contrast too. So just make sure people can actually see to turn the controls on and off. There is a list of accessible media players from a site called Digital A11Y Alley, and you choose an embedded video, embedded player is decent as well, as are Vimeo and a few of the other big ones. So that's really it. We're thinking through planning and scripting. We are making sure at that time we're including that description of visual content and making a plan for whether we're doing it as an integrated audio description or as a separate audio description. We're going to shoot the video using those tips that I provided. Make sure you're captioning and transcripting and making sure those are accurate as possible. And then we're publishing and kind of checking our player to make sure it's accessible. And that kind of leads me to Q&A. So I see that there's actually a question in the chat now. I'm going to start with that. So how do you control the color contrast of the player? That is something that a web developer would have to do, likely. Or if it's not something that's in your control or you're not a web developer, you're just basically choosing your player based on whether it has those features, accessibility features that you need. So don't choose one that doesn't have kind of contrast. And this is something I know I kind of touched on it briefly, and I didn't get a lot of chance to talk too much about it because I wanted to focus on the captioning and the audio description. But if you ever have any questions about that, that's what I'm here for, my team's here for, and I know there are several others in the 823 community that can help with those questions as well. It's a great question though, but I'm more than happy to always help you. If you're kind of looking at a media player and you're like, I don't know if this one works or not, then that's absolutely a question I can help answer. Right. What other questions do you have?
I was just going to say, this is Marty. While we're looking at other questions, I'm just going to go ahead and rather than using the SurveyMonkey link, I'm going to go ahead and just launch the evaluation survey, if that's okay.
Yes,
there's only 3 questions, so.
Yes, and like I said, please fill it out. I appreciate all the attention and your participation. You guys have been so much fun. Right, and anyone else have any other questions after you get done with your survey?
Wait just another couple of minutes here. Not a couple minutes, but a little while.
Oh, we got a question. Do we have any more plans to do any more webinars on this topic? What would you like to see, Caitlin? Like, what specifically would you want to dive more into? That would for sure help out.
And thank you, everybody, for responding to the survey.
I apologize, I didn't leave a whole lot of time for questions. Because I took a few during the session. So. Marty, it looks like people are saying the survey's disappeared now. You might pop it back up. A few more people look like want to respond. If you can, I don't know if Zoom will let you.
No, actually, it won't let me.
This was great, Lisa. This is Linda. Thank you so much. And it appears there is high interest in this topic, so we may need to chat further.
So more ways to make videos accessible as well as streamlining the process. Yeah, that sounds good. I really appreciate it when people say, hey, we want more of this or less of this or whatever. It really helps.
Another comment about also managing a variety of accessible needs.
Makes sense. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot to talk about with like multiple disabilities and how those folks would interact with this kind of content. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
A comment about different languages.
yeah. That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for coming. It's been really cold in here the whole time, so I apologize. I've probably been rubbing my hands a lot. Didn't have my heat turned on high enough. Oh, so Lydia, if I can find it fast enough, if you're gonna stay on fast or for long enough, we have a course that we've provided through AT3 on PowerPoint accessibility. Flyer accessibility is more like InDesign or Word potentially, but we have a course on Word too. So I'm gonna pop that link for the AT3 Center course in the chat, and you can kind of check those out, and I can at least give you some help in the meantime. Yeah, I'm almost there. Here we go. Yeah, so feel free to go take as many of those courses as you would like. And I also realized I didn't actually share my contact information. So I don't know if you're going to send an email out after this, I can share the slides, some of the resources, and my contact info for you to share. Oh, and I just put the link into host and panelists. Actually, I don't think I can.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you can with
Yeah, I'm not able to share it with
webinar.
Yeah. Darn, I don't know how I can. Yeah, so Lydia, it's not actually letting me send it to everyone. It's just allowing me to send it to hosts and panelists. Linda or Marty, are you able to share with participants?
No, because we're both panelists.
Both panelists, okay. Well.
But Lydia, if you put your email in.
Yeah, I can email it to you. That's great. Great idea. My brain's a little bit mush, so I'm not.
Well, I can only imagine. I just don't know why. I mean, you've been talking for an hour plus.
Yeah. Here we go. And yeah, Marty, we can include the link to the courses in the email out to everyone as well.
Yeah, we will do that too.
Okay. We got a lot of stuff to share.
Mm-hmm.
I put the link in the Q&A on the question that had been answered. That's the only place I can do it. But yeah, so you've got multiple ways of getting it. So hopefully one of the ways works. Yeah.
Well, it says Lydia got it.
Good deal. That's another Zoom thing I feel like is new. I feel like you used to be able to share or type in the chat if you were a panelist or a host, and it's not like,
You can now, if you want to.
oh,
I think you should be able to.
yeah, cool. So they've locked it down a little bit and you have to select the option to, okay. Cool. Well, any other questions? I'm happy to stay on. I know other folks may need to run, but I'm good to stay on for a couple more minutes. Sharing my slides. I feel like everybody's gone pretty quiet, so maybe we can shut it down and I will send you guys an email as soon as I get off. That works. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Linda.
much.
Okay. See y'all later.
Bye.